Akiva Balsam, welcome to Visionary Voices.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here today. Tell me about Lost Camp.
Lost Camp, okay. So first of all, your son was there for 2 years and he was an absolute rock star. That's number one. Lost Camp is a very, very special program. It is probably the largest adventure program possibly in the world. A lot of people don't know this, and possibly even in the secular world too, not just in the Jewish world. It's a very, very unique program. It's almost unheard of. We take a very large group, and we have something called an urban detox, where we take away all the distractions that a modern child faces. And they are forced to just live raw with one another. We have a group of close to 40 kids usually on a regular basis, and we take them all over the world. Internationally, we took them to Guatemala, South Africa. This year, we're going to Peru, Bezras Hashem. Part of the point of that is to get them way out of their comfort zone, to get them way out of society, way out of this culture even. And just to go out there and explore and live life raw with one another with zero distractions. And a big part of it is also learning from the culture, learning from the people. And a lot of times we'll purposely take them to third world country, where people have less. They don't have phones, they don't have TVs, they don't have distractions, and they get to experience firsthand living on their farms, in their tribes, wherever we go. And they see how happy you could be without needing distractions. And what ends up happening is just miraculous. Like, you just see guys, lives being changed, because for the first time in a lot of kids' life, they have time to think. Who am I? What do I really want from what's important in life? And they're seeing that a lot of what I was living until now wasn't really me. It was just other people's projections, other people's dreams. My brain's just polluted all day with social media and other people. Now, like that I have a clearing, I see that I'm actually much less anxious. I feel like a mensch. I feel like I'm me, and I'm producing, I'm contributing, I'm giving, I'm working, I'm creating.
And living on the defense, thrown across an ocean from our goals. And life is making no sense, just riding in between the highs and lows. I'm so used to falling wide. What else can I try? But maybe what I need most is hidden deep in caves of stone, in the places that I fear most. It seems so dark and so alone. Let down the walls, walk through the pain, make friends with the demons that I like to wait.
They all have to make their own food. They all have to set up everything themselves, their tents, and they're accomplishing every day, getting to the top of mountains and facing the greatest fears, bungee jumping, rafting, rock climbing, rappelling, all sorts of like crazy things. And they feel like, wow, like I can do something in this world. Like there's a purpose for me to live, instead of just living their whole lives, watching other people's adventures and other people's life. They're actually doing something with their life. And for the first time, like you see guys, they feel like a mensch. Two, three, and go. Te quiero mucho.
this a function of our society that we are tied to social media, smartphone, video games, and we become dulled intellectually and emotionally to this media?
I think 100%. Every generation has their challenges, and our challenge is that there's so much access to so much pleasure and so many distractions that it distracts us from, our meaning in life. That stuff really takes you away from purpose and meaning and things that are worthwhile.
I'm very amazed that kids, and I have grandchildren, who know how to do this. They know how to swipe. 2 years old, 3 years old, they take the mom's phone and they're doing this kind of thing at 2, 3 years old. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people use the video game or the videos or cell phones as a babysitting tool from a very young age. Mm-hmm. So kids are being raised with social media and with video games to numb themselves and to become passive. Is that a function of this, what you're describing here as people who are losing a sense of purpose?
What's happening is that society's gotten to the point where we're able to invent something that will take away any effort that you have to put into anything. So, and we think that helps us because, as you're saying, it's like numbs the child. Now he's not going to cry. He'll be busy. Now I don't have to deal with him. But we're actually created for the process. We're created to deal with the kid. We're created, that's what we're here for. And we know that deep down. Deep down, we know we're here for the process. So in a certain sense, it doesn't help that we're trying to invent something to avoid every process out there, because what we're being left with is people that feel ice mensch. We're dealing with a generation that their biggest challenge is shame, because we feel like we're pieces of nothing. And it could be, God forbid, so to speak, it's not true 100%, it could be to a certain degree it's true. Because if you don't do anything with your life and you're living somebody else's life all day and you're not doing the process, you're finding inventions or ways of numbing, and that's what our society is all about, to not have to do any effort. You're doing exactly the opposite of what you were created. That's not what a mensch is. That's not what a human being is. A human being, by definition, is someone that pounds it, that creates, that goes out there and builds and works. It's the process that we're created for, and you can't go against that. It's going to end up getting back at you if you try going against your purpose in life. You know it deep down. You're going to be depressed.
This process you're describing, is that the process of personal growth, personal development?
It says, Adam lo-amal yulad. And amal doesn't mean just to work, it means to work hard. Like, we're here to work hard. And I think it also means in every aspect, like sweeping the floor. And, obviously the Gemara says the main thing is Torah, and, that's the main amilas and stuff. But it's also the whole picture of life. We're meant to face the challenges, the physical, mental, spiritual, everything, every aspect of life. But we're meant for the grind, really. And we know that because when we're doing the grind, we feel amazing. Wash the dishes, you feel amazing afterwards. Dishwashers don't really help us. We think it does because then we watch more TV, but then you end up being depressed afterwards and you don't even know why. You don't feel like a mensch afterwards. When you wash the dishes, you feel like a mensch. I think in every aspect of our lives, we're machines that were created for process, and work and creation and effort and amelos. So in every aspect, physical, spiritual, mental, we have to realize and embrace that which we were created for, or else we will not be happy people. And we will be very ashamed of ourselves.
So now you discussed the idea of pleasure, that the social media, Angry Birds, Pokemon, all of the games that we play and we train our kids to live on growing up, to distract them or to give them some downtime, etc. That is the anti-process. Is that what you're saying? That because when you're passive and you're just listening to someone else's media, someone else's game, and you're just being intellectually shut down, we're not thinking, is that the anti-process?
Yeah, 100%, because you're numbing yourself to your process, so you don't have to feel your insides yelling and saying, hey, you're supposed to be working, we're a man on a mission, we're here for a big purpose. You're trying to numb that by living somebody else's life. Everything that's interesting on social media is another guy's adventure. You're only interested if somebody else is going through a grind. Every movie's like the most depressed, scary situation, and then they work so hard and they work it out or they come out the other end, and you're watching other people go through the process. Rabbi Kilish has this very famous saying that he says, don't watch 007, be 007. Like, I want you to go to South Africa and go do the bungee jump. Stop watching it on YouTube. Go do the bungee jump. It'll change your life. You know, that's what we're saying over here, is that everybody's busy trying not to have to do what it takes to be 007. So they're watching literally people's lives that are 007s. But deep down, your neshama is screaming because you're wasting time.
So when you describe the Hebrew word amelus, what does amelus mean?
Everybody has to be amal. And no matter what, you're gonna be amal no matter what you ever do. The question is, are you gonna choose where you want to gear your amelus towards? Or are you gonna end up trying to take the easy route and end up in a psychologist's office trying to get rid of your depression? But just know nobody has a free trip. That celebrity or whatever who made it and it has a zillionaire and now doesn't have to work and is living on some island or something, they're being amal. At the end of the day, they will be amal. Just Hashem will make that person be amal just as much as the guy working hard in a Gemara or working hard in his work or whatever. The only difference is it'll be in a way they never saw. Like all of a sudden they get depressed and now they're amal like crazy, going to this doctor and this doctor. There's no free trips in this world. We're created for the grind, and there's no way out of it unless you embrace it. You know.
So when you say, the Gemara says, Adam la'amal yulad, he's meant to toil. The toil in Torah, the Gemara, the Mefarshim say that if you're not going to be amal in Gemara, if you're not going to amal in working your mind and understanding what Hashem's will is in the Gemara for yourself and work that through, then one will have to go through other types of amal, other types of suffering or challenges in order to replace that. But the amal is the purpose, to work through things, through the amelus, through the toil, through the discovery, through the travail, through working through issues. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. You said it much better.
In the 1960s, when television took off, it was founded in the 50s and took off in the 60s with the Ed Sullivan Show and the Beatles and all things on television and Batman and Robin, and people were starting to get attached to television. People were concerned that kids were watching too much television and they were becoming passive, watching 10 hours, 15, 20 hours a week of television, and that became the turning off of the mind. That's been replaced today with social media, with video games, etc. So this has been going on for 70, 80 years in society, where we're becoming numb. Why is it that we are lending ourselves toward this kind of passivity, numbness, letting the television tell us how to think? Why aren't we thinking for ourselves anymore? What is happening in society that's causing us to want to numb out?
Is it that we have a problem and then we're trying to numb to get rid of the problem in this generation? Or maybe it's that we came out, we just found easier ways to do things and didn't realize the repercussions. I don't know which way is true. I don't think it makes that big of a difference anyways. But I do think that as society has progressed, with the inventions, and we have a taiva to do things the easiest way, to not do the process. We never knew what the repercussions would be in the future from not doing what we're meant to do and just chilling in this, taking it easy, And then what we see is that people end up with a lot of shame. I think Rabbi Kalish, this is where Rabbi Kalish says that our generation's challenge is shame, hands-on. I think Rebbitzin Brene Brown, if you want to call her. We call her the Rebbitzin in our yeshiva, Brene Brown. I think she says that that's the challenge of our generation also, is shame. And it comes, really shame, what it means is that there's no you. And it's true, because if you never did anything, if you never produce anything, so you become unconscious. You don't think for yourself. People don't realize that, for the most part, all those thoughts in your brain are not you. If you look at the science of how your brain works, random neurons that store random things that you see in your life, and they shoot off and they join together and they create new thoughts. Like one day you saw an elephant, a day later you see a red car, and in the middle of shir, 2 days later, you're like, holy cow, an elephant riding on a red car? That's the craziest thing I've ever thought of. You didn't think that thought up. It thought the thought. Like, your brain randomly thinks these thoughts. In the olden days, I think a lot more is much easier they also had, brain that shoots off, but not as much, and a lot more calmness in between. That you can choose your thoughts and which ones you want to accept and which ones are real, and you can They used to work in the field. Everything's slower. You're working in the fields. You're thinking to Hashem. You think about Hashem. You think about your life, what I want to do, what's my next step. It was such a more meditative society where you can think and let go of the randomness. But nowadays we kind of gave in, and now we just live things that we just see. Billboards, pictures, ideas, media, whatever, and we just let our brain go on autopilot all day long. So what ends up is you deep down, you feel the deepest feelings of shame and worthlessness, because a real human being is someone that comes up with a dream and then lives true to it and fights through everything and gets to the other side, builds it, creates, and comes to the other side and says, wow, I just did something. Like, that's a human being. That's why you were created. You weren't created to be an angel, right? You weren't created to be a robot. You're this human being which has the koyach to mamish maneuver in this world, dream up stuff and create them with all the imperfections and with the Yetzer Hara and with all the challenges and come out the other side. But there's a lot of effort. All that could only be done if you have quietness where you could actually think to yourself and drum up, hey, this is what I want, and carry it out and nail it. But nowadays, we'd rather just sit in bed and watch somebody else be 007, and just do nothing.
What comes to mind is when a lot of kids come to my office as a psychologist, and they tell me that I want to become a designer of video games, and my ultimate goal is for me to play video games and have somebody else watch me and pay me $1 million for all the hits, so they can watch me play video games. So you have an ultimate irony where you have a guy who's doing the ultimate impassivity of playing a video game which has no meaning, and you have millions of people and kids watching him play video games, and lots of money is coming in because of this advertising revenue, and you have an ultimate, at the end of the day, nothingness. And that's what you're describing as shame, where a person comes out saying, what did I do at the end of the day? What did I accomplish?
Right.
I just spent all my day watching, being passive, not processing myself.
Right.
Now this process you're talking about is processing your thoughts, processing your feelings, processing your purpose, processing meaning of life. Is that what you mean by process?
A lot of people look at the process as just a process to get to the thing. What you're going to realize in this world that there is no goal. The biggest proof is that the goal of all of our society is to build these machines or these things that make it easier for people. Even like a Rebbe is trying to make the shiur that they'll make it easier for people. And we create these machines, and then we realize that if all the people use the machines, it actually also wrecks them in a certain way, because then it made it easier. Now they don't feel like they're doing anything. It's okay. Like, take the bait, go for the goal. You know what I mean? But it's the process itself that you were born for. That's what you need to celebrate. You need to sit there in the process and be like, this is me. This is where I'm at. I'm not when I reach the goal. I know that when I reach the goal, I'm going to end up feeling terrible an hour later. It'll never give you your happiness, which you thought that you would be able to live forever on some island or whatever your goal was. But the process itself, if you could learn to celebrate the process, then you'll be on fire with life, and you'll actually find a ton of pleasure, much more pleasure, even physical and mental pleasure, in the process than in the goal.
So let's differentiate between pleasure and real joy, or simcha.
Yeah.
Pleasure is known as physical pleasure, the opposite of pain. And our society has developed technology which has produced washing machines and dryers and technology which is helping us in our day-to-day life, cars, getting there faster. But we've extrapolated from there, yes, that makes our life better, but then we've gone on to technology which is making us emotionally and intellectually numb, where the free time we're using is also passive. So it's a good idea to have technology and to help us achieve things faster and to fly to the moon. But once you get the technology which is making you humanly passive, then you get into the world of shame.
Even with the washing machine and dryer, it's a big question in my mind how much that stuff helps altogether.
Really?
Also with
You feel that it's better to
What is
put
that?
your effort into washing the clothes yourself and then think
Sometimes, yeah.
while you're working through that.
Sometimes. Now here's the thing. It really has to do partially with what your dream is. Meaning, you should base your life on what your greatest dreams are in this generation, in this situation. Now, what those machines will help you is with the story of your dreams. Meaning, we're not all born to do the same thing. It's not like God's just like, hey, I'm going to give you a certain amount of pain, and everybody's just got to do this pain, and then you'll go to Gan Eden afterwards, and you're good to go. There's a story behind this whole thing going on. Like, Hashem actually wants to see what we're going to drum up. It all has to do with your storyline of your life that you want to dream and live to, and you create that, and that's very, very important. Now, if you need to wash your clothing, and that will take away from your dream, your creation, that's bad. But don't think for a second that the washing machines help us have better lives inherently or make us happier. Nothing makes us happier and nothing makes us sadder. It's just the way the world works. And a little shout out to my book, but I wrote a book about this basically, the way that pain and pleasure work. They each feed off each other.
What's the name of the book?
It's called The Dopamine Secret. Yeah.
Dopamine Secret.
The Dopamine Secret. It's available on Amazon. Go get it. Akiva Balsam. Check it out. It's really, really good. Very unique book. It goes painstakingly through every single pleasure, basically, that you'd ever imagine. Like, oh my gosh, like if I just got this, if I just got... It goes through every pleasure you ever had and shows you the downside that you never paid attention to. Like, you never realized that you were a grump the day after you got like some big car or some big house or whatever it was, directly related to the fact that you had a dopamine peak is the crash. And it's the latest science. They're doing studies on this in the brain now, and it's a hot topic out there. And it's such a wild thing to see because it fits exactly with what Torah's always taught us, and even Reb Noach Weinberg, what he always taught us. Pleasure doesn't really exist. There's no such thing as pleasure. It's literally motivation to make you happy to get to your dreams. Because when you have dreams, there's a lot of friction and it's tough. So God gave us this gift to help us out a little bit. He gives us dopamine. He makes us feel good. He makes us like, wow, I'm doing amazing. Wow, I love the grind. That's dopamine. That's pleasure. That's the only purpose of pleasure. The second, though, you say, whoa, I love this feeling, so now let me feel like this more. Now you just lost sight of your dream. Now you're focusing on that good feeling that you started feeling on the way to the dream.
That's addiction.
Yeah. Yes.
You're talking about addiction.
Yeah.
A dopamine addiction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we get addicted to the pleasure,
Yeah.
and we lose sight of the fact that there's a goal or a purpose.
Yeah.
So dopamine takes us off and away from a purposeful life.
Yes. We lose focus. We think that that's the purpose in and of itself. But if you look at the science of what pleasure is in the brain, it is impossible because pleasure's literally created from pain. And it's a much longer, I don't know if you want to go into it now. I could explain
Pleasure
it
comes
to you.
from pain?
Literally comes from pain. The only reason why, again, what is dopamine they're discovering now? It's a motivation chemical that motivates you when you're on your way to getting a goal, you feel a boost. But it's only due to the friction. Because you accepted upon yourself some friction, some pain, you feel validated, feel amazing. The chemicals in your brain reward you for facing friction or pain. Basically, it's the opposite of the pain that's making you actually be conscious of the pleasure. But if you keep taking that pleasure, you will become unconscious to it because it doesn't have existence in it of itself. It's only a feeling of validation, of reward from the pain that you allowed yourself to face. So what does everybody do? They start working towards their goals in life, right? And they start working. And all of a sudden they start feeling amazing. And they're like, this is it, right? Yeah, look, I just built this multi-million-dollar house or whatever. Now I have it. Like, and this is the pleasure. They don't realize that wasn't the pleasure. And then they sit in it and start getting really depressed. They start getting used to everything. Everything becomes boring. Everything becomes nothing. Start getting upset. They can become in weird fights. They start divorcing their wives. They start become wrecks because they lost track. They didn't realize the pleasure wasn't in the goal. So that's not where it came from. It came from the process. It came from the friction. And that's the only way to drum up pleasure in this world is through work.
Through amelus.
Amelus.
Through process,
Yes.
through travail,
Yes.
through working through issues.
Right.
There's a famous story of someone I know who dreamt that one day he'd be able to be successful and build a beautiful house with a kidney-shaped swimming pool in the back. And he would lie on this blown-up lounge chair with a indent on the armchair to put a martini glass. And he figured that would be my dream. So he finally became rich, and he built this beautiful home in Miami, and he built this kidney-shaped swimming pool, and he blew up the lounge chair, And he lay in it, a beautiful sunny day, with an indent on the armchair with a martini glass, and he lay back there and he said, "This is it." And a few minutes later he said, "It is? This is it? This is it? Why aren't I feeling so inspired?" He said, "This can't be it." And he decided to sell his house, and he moved to Jerusalem, became a student of Talmud at Or Sameach Yeshiva, learning and working through himself. And I think the learning of Torah, the learning of Jewish sources, helps us understand what God wants for us and how the history of Jewish thought helps us process our own thoughts. Tell me about Lost Camp and how it addresses this issue of shame, and when you go on these extreme, and I have to have a heart-to-heart talk with you, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, but Akiva, my son Yehuda Roll, he was a dorm counselor at Waterbury Yeshiva for 2 years, and he went to Lost Camp as a counselor. What do we call it? OG?
Yes.
What's
Original
OG?
gangster.
Original gangster. So Yehuda Roll.
He was an OG counselor.
So my son Yehuda Roll was an original gangster, OG, in the Lost Camp, and
Yes,
was
he
a
was.
counselor.
Yeah.
And he told me he was having a great time, and he went out to California, and he went to Utah, and traveled across the country. When he showed me, when he came back, some pictures and photos of walking along edges of mountains where the drop is like 2,000 feet. And so we walked along this thing, and we did some travail and some zip lining with there's 2,000. I said, "You didn't tell me that when you were at Lost Camp last summer."
Okay.
What are you doing to these boys, taking them on these extreme adventures where they're on the edge of life? What's going on?
We're teaching that you're unlimited and get out there, explore. So we're doing the opposite. Not that you have to live a life of exploring the world and going, you know, but for a moment, you'll see something if you come with us. We're going to show you something. And we're talking directly to a kid that's sitting in his room watching his phone all day. The kids don't realize it. They think that they need their phones because they're depressed, right? And by the way, that's how it started. They were once depressed. Something went wrong in life or whatever, or something, you know, or they saw, or they were, it could even be just they were tantalized, you know, wow, that looks like such a good life. And then they get stuck, you know, addicted to the pleasure itself, right? And they say, yeah, I can't know, I'm way too depressed, and I need my phone, I need my movies, I need my drugs, I need everything. Because if you know the pain that I'm going through, what they don't realize is that the only thing that's keeping that pain in place and that depression in place and the thing is their phone, is the drugs, is the distractions, is the numbing. And they don't realize that it was okay what they felt the first time that they felt depressed, and that something went wrong in the family, or that they didn't fit into yeshiva or whatever. And those are very dark times. And it's fine. Like, be with it. If you would stick with it and talk about it and deal with the pain and be with the pain, it would in no time, they'd be like, hey, okay, let me get up out of bed, let me try something else. The only reason why they're not getting out of bed and going, trying whatever, is because they believe that they are chronically damaged, you know, that they are depressed, nothingnesses, they're incapable, they're broken, they have a mental issue, they have a mental illness, a mental disease. You don't know how many kids in Waterbury have, you know, they show up and they're, yeah, my son, he's got like this illness and this disease, and we all laugh, like all the stuff. We don't believe in any of that stuff. We know it's all not true. Do a science study in our yeshiva, you'll see what happens when they start discovering themselves. How many of those illnesses, diseases, and stucknesses, it's all not true.
Anxiety, depression, ADHD,
right.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
They label that,
but
that's just a symptom of not understanding the process, what's going on with their child.
Right. So we go in Lost Camp, it's only for a kid that's ready to make that step. A kid has to mature.
And I think that's what you're saying. Lost Camp is trying to help a person do that. Now, what does Lost Camp do to nurture that when you go on these extreme experiences? That you took my son, Yehuda Roll, who's now Baruch Hashem married with a kid, but he went on a journey himself to develop himself. He was one of the singers of Aleinu and in the Waterbury journey as he was a dorm counselor there. Yeah. But he helped discover himself, and he was really enamored with that system, that program. What do you do at Lost Camp that causes someone to find out themselves, discover themselves?
Yeah, so it's really the next step when they're ready for it. But what we do is we get them out of bed. Anybody that's coming is ready for that stage, and we'll give them a crazy interview before and make sure they have to read this whole thing and they know what they're getting into. But basically, we're going to show them that the sky's the limits. You could do whatever you want. Nobody's trapped. Kids always think they stay trapped because they think that they're actually trapped. It's not true. Nobody's you can do whatever you want. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Nobody's actually holding them, not even their parents. You know, it's in the brain. They trap themselves because they think that they're a piece of trash. So then they think I'm incapable of everything.
Is that the shame we're talking about? The trash is the shame?
Yes.
That I don't fit in the system, I don't belong anywhere, I'm not good at anything, I'm nothing,
and then
I don't know how to learn.
And then they watch all the movies and the social media and stuff, and that just traps it in, and that's what keeps it in place. All those numbing devices is what makes them feel more and more like trash because they're ice mensch. You're not being a human being. There are kids, unfortunately, that I meet that have not been a human being, have not experienced what it means to be a living, conscious human being for like 2-3 years of their life. It's scary.
Wow.
You're watching somebody walking like this, and you could see it on their faces when they talk to you, and any social setting, they're running away because they're ashamed. I'm not a human being. Me? I'm part of my couch, I'm part of my bed, I'm part of nothing. I'm just passive. I can't actually do anything. I'm stuck.
that feeling of worthlessness.
Yeah.
That's what I work on in psychology when I have clients. And I work with a lot of young men working on their self-esteem, and a system of self-development, a 7-step system of consciousness, is they're unconscious.
Right.
And they've lost a sense of self.
Right.
So before you get to self-esteem, you got to have self.
Yes.
So you're saying they lost their self.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So we just do the opposite. Like, we reverse engineer the whole thing. Our first step is to take away all the numbing devices, right?
Do
So
they rebel
there's
against that?
Zero.
Do they freak out when they say?
So that's the thing. That's part of the reason why we take them out of country usually.
So on lost camp, you take that away.
It's not even taken away. We leave it behind.
But in Waterbury itself, you don't take away devices.
No. That's not.
The first year and a half.
No. This is for guys that
next
are at the
stage.
stage where they're like, I'm ready to take my life to life 10 levels up. You know?
How old are they when they go? What grade or what year?
So it all
in school?
depends on the kid. There are some even younger kids. Now, mostly it's going to be already 11th, 12th, even first-year base measures, second-year base measures. We have ages 14 to 23. And it's just when he's ready. So it's mostly going to be, starting from 16, 17, 18, most of that. But we even have some 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds.
But
and
usually it takes
they're
time
ready.
to get there. It takes time, 14, 15, 16, to get to that level where you're ready to make the lost camp
Yes.
jump. It takes time to get there.
Yeah, for the kids that are coming into our system,
Got it.
it usually takes some time to be at that stage.
Got it.
But when they're ready for that stage, it's the most amazing thing that could ever happen, because we have a 100% success rate, literally. Bli Ain Hara. Like, there's not one kid that walked into the system, and it's not like it's not like, oh wow, I'm such a genius or something like that. It's so simple. Take away every single distraction, phone, whatever. Put a group of guys together, any random guys. I don't care if they're friends, you're not gonna, and put them on the craziest adventures where they have to produce and celebrate the process itself, the grind itself. They have to cook themselves with raw ingredients. They have to go to a country where they're uncomfortable and don't know how to deal with it, and figure out how to deal with the people, and figure out how to maneuver, and climb to the top of mountains, and get to the top of scary heights, and be scared. And we teach them, not only is it good, that's why you were born. You were born for your son going, hiking and having to traverse, with the 3,000-foot drop at Angel's Landing, and your feet are shaking and everything. You're born for that.
Let's go!
Shalom Yulad, you
Wow,
know?
beautiful.
And it's 100% success rate. Guys, you see them, guys, all of a sudden, they just open up. You see people lighting up. They're back to being a human being. They're talking with their friends. They're schmoozing. They have these little mini stoves and little mini pots. And they all cook. We give them raw ingredients, basically, or we go to local markets, depending which country or whatever in it. And they all help each other cook, and they're communicating and talking and laughing and schmoozing. Because there's no phones. There's no distractions. There's no nothing. And they just work so hard that day. So they feel pleasure, real pleasure, like the type of pleasure that you get rewarded with when you work hard.
So I guess that's
they
called
feel
simcha.
amazing.
That's called
right,
simcha.
yeah.
Pleasure is the physical pleasure, or the physical pleasure of opposite of pain, where you're numbed and you're feeling, okay, I'm not in pain.
Right.
But simcha,
Right.
joy,
Excellent.
personal growth, that's growth. My Rebbe, Rav Moshe Shapiro Zatzal, said that the word simcha means personal growth. When you grow from one level of character to the next, that produces simcha. That's real joy. That's not pleasure.
Wow.
That's joy.
Wow. That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
There's a Gemara in Sukkah which calls a tefach. It calls this as a tefach atzuv. So a tefach is 4 inches, approximately 4 inches this width. That's called a tefach atzuv. And then there's a tefach sochek, which is this wide. It's about 4.5 inches. So he asked the question, or Moshe asked the question, why is this called a tefach? Why isn't this called a rebach? Why is it called the same thing? Tefach atzuv, a sad tefach, a sad width, and a tefach sochek, a happy. He says because the tefach has to grow from the tefach atzuv to tefach sochek. You can't call it something else. It comes from the atzuv, from the atzivus. It comes from it grows. That's called the tefach sochek. It comes out of.
Beautiful.
That's why olam haba comes from this olam hazeh. Olam hazeh is not olam hazeh and olam hahu. This world, says the Alshech, not this world and that world. Olam haba mitoch olam hazeh. That the world to come comes out of this world.
Wow. The word ba means it came
Haba,
from.
out of this world.
Beautiful.
So the joy comes out of the pain.
Wow.
The joy of olam haba, the schar, comes out of the amelus of this world.
Wow.
Of this world. So that's what you're saying. Akiva
Yes.
Balsam, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Great to have you here from Waterbury Yeshiva. You got up this morning at 5:45 with your group and came here today.
Yes.
And we thank you so much
We
for
have the
driving all the way
film crew.
and being part of our group and being in an interview today of visionary voices.
Yes.
Akiva Balsam,
Thank you.
Visionary voices. Thanks
Thank
for
you
coming.
very much.